Okay, welcome to the digestion and absorption independent work that you need to do. By the end of this, you should be experts in everything you need to know on digestion and absorption. My suggestion to you is to make sure that you get yourselves organised, you have your student booklet, your stationery, a textbook to hand would be useful, and be prepared to pause this video at any point to do the activities. You won't be able to do it all in one go, and I expect this will probably take 3 to 4 hours of your time, so do the work in sections. This page shows you what your exam board is expecting you to know by the end of the work that you've done, and that's on the presentation, and you can refer to that at any point. The presentation, just in presentation form, is on Godalming Online, and you can find that there. Okay, so a few instructions, just so that you're completely up to speed with what's expected of you. First of all, we would like you to do some recall activities. If you look on your student booklet, you can see that the first page is devoted to these recall activities. The idea behind this is for you to recall all the information from previous topics that are really linked to this digestion and absorption unit. If you can do these activities, then it means that you will find it much easier to understand all the details of digestion and absorption. So you should pause the video at this point and follow the instructions here, and be sure to write down any questions that you may have that you can take to your teachers when you come back. Good, welcome back. Okay, so the next thing you need to do is watch this video, or these videos. There'll probably be 2 or 3 of them. Ensure that you pause if you don't understand, go back, listen again. You need to complete the student booklet, ensure that all areas of the booklet are complete. The content that is in that student booklet will not be covered in lessons. We will obviously go over any specific questions you have, but this is completely independent work, and no lesson time will be devoted to going over it again. Research and read up on digestion in other sources. Whenever you're doing independent work, you should go to at least 3 places to make sure that you've got a full understanding. And these will include the textbook, articles that are on Godalming Online in the extra resources folder, and video links which are at the bottom of the presentation. So ensure that you do this, either alongside the videos that you're watching or at the end, just to consolidate your knowledge. Then you will have to complete the exam questions. I do want to draw your attention to the last couple of pages of the student booklet, where you have to do some independent research on lactose intolerance and celiac disease. And this summary activity is really important. Make yourselves produce a revision resource. It could be flashcards where you've got a question on one side and the answers on the other, or a large annotated diagram with all the details. Something that is going to be easy for you to check whether you know this information. And there's some help here to help you with that summary activity. Okay, so let's talk just briefly about completing the booklet. And this should be the case for all your student booklets. You've got to do everything. Put your writing in note format. Don't copy. Put things into note form with, small words. They don't need to be full sentences. And it is a working document. So if you read extra information and there's something that you want to add in onto the document, then add it in on top of what's there already. What this should be is a working document. It doesn't need to be super neat. It just needs to have lots of information in it. Okay, let's get started. So, a few things to talk about in terms of human nutrition. First of all, these are this is important terminology on this page to help you sort of get your heads around what nutrition is about. The first terminology that you need to know about is ingestion, and that is just taking food into the mouth. Digestion, which is what we'll look at in a minute, is the mechanical and chemical breakdown of large insoluble molecules into small soluble molecules. Once you've got those small soluble molecules, then they can be absorbed. And absorption just means that those small molecules will cross the cell membranes of your intestines into the bloodstream. There is another term on here, assimilation, that is those small molecules can then be built up into larger molecules again once they're inside the body, and that often happens in the liver. And then the final terminology here is digestion, which is the elimination of undigested material from the body. Okay, so the first thing you need to know of the digestive system is the actual structure, what everything looks like. I would pause the video, test your knowledge by going to the link there, or go to page 4 of your student booklet and have a go at labelling it without looking at this screen. See how you get on. But that is the structure of the digestive system. What you've got to remember with the digestive system, that ultimately what you've got is you've got a tube, and it starts at this end and it goes all the way down and it winds itself round and it comes out at the other end. So once inside that tube, it's not actually inside the body. It's a tube with sort of special adaptations along the way to enable us to digest. We will start with our physical digestion in the mouth here, and the teeth will break up the food. Your salivary glands will release saliva, which contains certain chemicals in it. It's got enzymes in it, salivary amylase. It will start chemical digestion. That will then travel down the esophagus into the stomach. Again, we've got more chemical digestion, more enzymes. What's left of what was your food to start with is now heading into the duodenum, which is the beginning bit of the small intestines. This is closely associated with your liver and your gallbladder. You've got a duct that comes into the duodenum here, and your pancreas. Once we then go through into the ileum, which is the next part of your small intestine, this is where absorption takes place. This is where those small molecules are going to cross across that membrane and into the bloodstream. Anything that's undigested will come through the large intestine, and then digestion takes place here. So, in more detail, we've got what's going on in the mouth here. You've got the more scientific word for your mouth, the buccal cavity in the human, and that's where your mechanical digestion takes place, mastication, chewing. The saliva has mucin, which is a glycoprotein. It's a fantastic glycoprotein. It helps to bind food together. It gives it a bit of lubrication, but it's also got an antimicrobial protective quality to it for around your teeth. There's also salivary amylase to digest starch to maltose, and mineral salts, which keep that pH neutral. And that's important because obviously that links in really nicely to our knowledge of enzymes and them needing an optimum pH to work. Once we get to the esophagus, there is this peristalsis, and this peristaltic movement is due to circular muscle contractions within that esophagus that's going to help push the food down. This is a bolus of food, and it will then push down with a wave of contraction. The top part is under voluntary control, but as you move down, it's involuntary. It's about 4 to 8 seconds for food to travel from the mouth to the stomach. Your stomach is a muscular sac, as seen here in the diagram, that produces enzymes. Okay, it will store and churn and digest the food in here. Totally different acidic conditions here, pH 1 or 2. And there is quite a lot of mechanical digestion, the churning of the stomach that will break the food down in size. That increases surface area for those enzymes to work. We have lots of gastric juice in here, and that will contain the enzymes, hydrochloric acid and mucus. Mucus is super important here because it will line the stomach and it will stop that acidity actually destroying our own stomach cells. Moving on to the duodenum, it's the first 20 centimetres of the small intestine. more digestion is taking place, chemical digestion. We've got lots of enzymes come in here. So the pancreas produces lots of enzymes and they go through a little duct that comes into here. Lipids are broken down here, proteins are broken down here, and carbohydrates. There's a very large surface area, and we'll talk about that later. And we also have the input of bile, which is very important for lipid digestion. Again, you'll see that later. The liver is where bile is produced. It's stored in the gallbladder here and transported into here. So we have bile salts here and mineral salts. Bile is super important for emulsifying lipids, breaking them up into smaller pieces, smaller globules. Again, this makes a larger surface area for the enzymes to work on. The pancreas, this sort of chili-looking, chili-shaped organ, produces lots of pancreatic juices that have pancreatic amylase, pancreatic lipase, and proteases. Trypsin is one example of them. Lots of enzyme activity is going here, so lots of chemical hydrolysis of large molecules. The ileum is further along the intestine and digestion is still going on here, but we've got some different enzymes that are actually held in the wall of that ileum, and again we'll talk about that later. But this image shows really nicely the folding. So actually you can see slightly the bumps of the small intestine there. Those bumps are the folding, which are the villi. Now on each of those villi, villus is a singular one, so each villus will have millions of microvilli. And as it says here in the writing, this increases the surface area greatly, and that's important because in the ileum, that is where absorption takes place. The large intestine is where any undigested material will go through. A lot of the water that may have been secreted into the small intestine further up the digestive system will then be absorbed back into the blood here, as well as some minerals and vitamins. And then we finish off down at the rectum, where any feces is stored before being removed through the anus, and that's obviously through muscle control, and that process is egestion. Okay, so hopefully what you've got now is you've got a label diagram on your student booklet, and you've annotated all around from those slides and the information that I've given you in those last slides.